Have you seen how expensive some of the electric vehicles are these days? Yeah, you could pay over $100,000 for a new Tesla Model X or S. You can pay way over $100,000 for a Mercedes-Benz EQS or EQE. How about the Ford Lightning? They're even tapping 100 grand, as well as the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Those aren't selling very well either, and mainly because of, their $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 price tag, depending on which state of tune. And of course, the Porsche Taycan. Nobody ever would assume a Porsche would come cheap anyway. So the bottom line is the electric vehicles are not selling. They're not selling at all, and the future could in fact be doomed. But there's a lot more conversation to be had around this. Why is that happening? Well, number one, interest rates are on the climb. They're still continually to go up, up, up. We know prime borrowers can get ranges anywhere from 7 to 8% lending rate. But if you're a non-prime or subprime borrower, you might pay 12 to 20% on your car loan. And you think about a six-figure vehicle, that could take you decades to pay that off, and then you're so far underwater by the time you're even close to paying it off, the battery warranty's expired and the batteries are long gone, because after 8 or 10 years, they're pretty much worn out. Tesla does warranty their batteries for 8 years, by the way. Now, if people are looking at electric vehicles, we know the big players, the Fords and even the Benzes and Audis, they're all trying to get in on the market. We knew the mandates were in place, they were coming in hard and heavy, and the point remains, every manufacturer was trying to get a bite-sized piece out of that part of the marketplace. But I think most people that are looking at electric vehicles have traditionally gone to a Tesla. Why? Well, it's the name brand, that's where it all started. And also, we can't forget the fact that the charging infrastructure is way better on a Tesla. You get the non-Tesla versions, even though, yes, now there's these agreements in place where the mainstream manufacturers are trying to get in bed with Tesla to try to get a hold of some of these, this infrastructure. At the bottom, the point remains that no electric vehicle comes cheap. We also know vehicles like the Chevy Bolt, they were burning right on people's driveways. So people are a little skeptical about this whole EV marketplace. I mean, all the downsides with buying an electric vehicle, from, cars inadvertently, spontaneously combusting, to the fact that range anxiety, you may only get 300 or 400 miles and then you might be stuck in the middle of nowhere. Also, what do we do with the old batteries, and how long do these batteries last? What about cold weather driving or really hot weather driving, and how much range you lose there? We can't forget a lot of those factors, and the fact that a brand new electric vehicle is huge money. I mean, the point remains, there's lots of conversation around here, but at the end of the day, electric vehicle market is sizzling and fizzling out. And why is that? Well, let's dive into a few quick topics here, and some of that has to do with clearly the pricing. And it's just the wrong time as we transition for the next, over the next 5 to 10 years. A lot of federal governments are trying to mandate and push this through. We all know the infrastructure is not ready yet, but there's other things going on. But at the end of the day, some people feel it really matters. Why? I mean, the idea of extra emissions, fugitive emissions, CO2 emissions, CO carbon emissions, and we're polluting the air that we breathe, or at least that's the alleged selling piece. Now, we also hear about storylines where a lot of these manufacturers are going to start incorporating GPSs, they can start tracking you, they can start taxing you, and on top of that, people are starting to learn what's going on. Some of these states now are starting to apply taxes to these electric vehicles, because you can't charge road tax like you do with a standard gas vehicle, where you can pull up with an ICE to a gas pump and some of that taxation is embedded in the gas prices. But when you plug in your vehicle, there's no way to track that. So now they're trying to get smarter, and people are getting smarter yet and saying, why would I want to get sucked into that? Tires are more expensive, they're heavy, they're pricey. We can't forget this taxation that's starting to come around the corner. It's just not a good place. And the idea of oring all of that minerals to put into batteries is causing other, obviously other emissions, diesel equipment to ore some of this. And of course, all we're doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul. And people are starting to get smarter about this. People are starting to figure it out, and they're looking at other alternatives. I mean, what sort of things are going on? Well, first of all, General Motors has said already they're scrapping their plan to go 400,000 units between 2022 to 2024 because they're just not selling. And as a matter of fact, the CEO, Mary Barra, actually says that they're looking at near-term profitability. That's the concern, because Clearly, it's not a profitable marketplace right now. They're doing it because they want to own some of the market share. But the sad part is the development of a lot of these electric vehicles are coming at a significant cost. I mean, a lot of this re-engineering, retooling, redesign, all of this comes new. It's fresh platforms, and it's costing these OEMs a lot of cash to get these vehicles out on the road. And sadly enough, a lot of these manufacturers are starting to see the writing on the wall. We can't keep up with the Teslas of the world. Teslas can scale. Teslas have looked at the profitability because they sell directly to the customer. They opt out and get rid of the middle guy. And so you're not dealing through that network of markets of manufacturer dealerships that are hosing the consumer and adding their piece of the pie in there. No, Tesla is selling directly to the customer. And that then, of course, results in extra profitability and some flexibility in actually trying to compete or outsell some of its competitors. And GM is struggling with that very issue. How do they maintain that level of profitability? But even with that said, even Elon from Tesla says that he's actually concerned with the sales of even modern day Teslas. Even though they're one of the most competitive EVs on the marketplace, sales are struggling. And a lot of that has to do with the interest rates. Fact of the matter is cost of living is up on everything, and people are going to make a choice. Do I need a house, food, or that nice flashy car? Maybe I can do away with a cheaper car. Cars that are small ICE cars, that you used to be able to get for $20,000, $25,000 are going to be more popular and more palatable to consumers than spending 80 grand on an electric vehicle when you can get a reasonable facsimile on the ICE version for half of that money. And ICCars.com actually sees the trend, has commented they're seeing a downward trend on sales of electric vehicles. Now, yes, they're selling, but they're slowing down, and clearly the profitability is going away. People are getting wise to some of the ins and outs, the fact that GPSs are being hit on some of these vehicles, and as well, did you also know that some of these manufacturers are starting talking about putting kill switches, remote kill switches, so the idea if they're consuming too much energy, we want to be able to shut them off remotely. That is a serious conspiracy theory, but there's people talking about that as well being a possibility. And at IC Cars as well, they basically say that some of the big hits in terms of sales is likely because of obviously cost of living, as I already mentioned. Not to mention as well the interest rates, which are having a serious impact on people's borrowing power, and the fact if you're a subprime buyer, good luck in doing that. We also have to consider the fact that most of these EVs are much more money than their equivalent ICE counterparts. People are making a hard decision. I was actually talking to somebody the other day that said, boy, they really would love to get their hands on a base model Tesla X. But then they said, well, for $100,000, I can get a nice ICE or even a hybrid ICE, maybe a Toyota or something like that for $60,000 and have all kinds of money left over in the bank and still get the same fuel mileage and be more flexible, and reliability is always in the game there. So people are making those decisions, and they're saying, hey, do I need that EV? It'd be nice to have, but no, we're going to skip that. As well as ICCars.com, they do see, in fact, the idea of EVs plateauing. Yeah, they've been climbing for some time. They've been sort of leveling off, and now there seems to be, within the next 6 months, we anticipate some plateau action. So in other words, vehicles and the sales will likely level off, and we're not going to see a big increase in the growth of sales in that particular marketplace. People are just buying less vehicles. And when they are making those choices, they're probably going to be going to more conventional options. Even the big three, UAW, the GM, Stellantis, that's Ram, Jeep, as well as Ford. They've got lots of inventory. They're coming out with massive incentives now. They have to, because now that the strike is largely wrapping up, what we have is a situation where all these vehicles are building inventory. The number of days on the lot is exceedingly high. Of course, the cost to own those vehicles is also, so the floor plan cost is also increasing. So the longer you hold on to that truck, the longer it's going to cost you as the owner of that dealership. And of course, they're going to incentivize this. Now, as we roll into the end of the year, there's going to be even more push for a lot of the big threes to sell those, F-150s, the Rams, as well as the GM, 1500s and Silverados. There's going to be a much, much stronger push to move those along because the next year models are coming in already. And with all this extra inventory on the lot, there's going to be a lot of incentives. You mark my words. So the EV market is going to start to crap the bed because some of the big three are going to start eating market share there again. And the general threat level is quite high now from an investor standpoint. Investors never like to lose money. Projections are always very important. And the sales are falling off much quicker than they initially anticipated. And now the investor's standpoint, they're losing faith in the EV marketplace. They know there's going to be a place for it, but we're going to be losing ground. And clearly the investment value of running Tesla, as an investment perspective seems to be a waning thing. And a lot of these other manufacturers, it's going to be the same storyline. I mean, how many times have you seen a brand new Mercedes-Benz EQS driving around on the road? I actually haven't seen one on the road yet. I know there's a bunch at the dealership locally here, but they're not selling. Nobody's buying that. We know there's reliability issues. I mean, a lot of the bugs have been worked out with a lot of the Teslas, albeit they're not perfect. A lot of these other manufacturers are just starting down that road of reliability challenges and bugs and working out all those issues. And I just don't see those on the street. I don't see them out on the road. And investors are seeing that too. And unfortunately, we're losing faith in that particular market. EVs are shrinking. So essentially, bottom line is, yes, the EV markets are growing at a very slow, reducing pace. Will they always replace, or will they actually eventually replace all of the internal combustion engine vehicles on the road? Time will tell. I personally have some thoughts and some doubts, but there's reasoning for that, and I'll get to that in another video. But for the time being, I have to ask the question, in your opinion, what do you think? In the comments section below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now that we're cracking open this whole vault of Stellantis, GM, and Ford, moving aside from this UAW strike and getting that in a rearview mirror, what do you think that's going to have an impact on? Do you feel that that's going to have a significant impact, moderate impact, or no impact to the sales of EVs as the next 6 months to 2 years goes on? Love to hear it down in the comment section below. And as well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you then. Bye-bye.